All right, welcome back, viewers. This has been a little while actually since I did a stream, or at least seems that way. I was trying to do one every other day, or ideally every day, but with my full-time job and other things going on, it makes it difficult. Anyways, I wanted to do an update on the progress of what I've done so far and some of the changes I made. Um, I started this list here, this to-do list of things that needed to be handled, and so I want to kind of go through this. And this was an original list I found that I started a while back, and then I started doing like one for each stream and doing a to-do list on that, which we'll take a look at that in a minute. But these are some things that I had written down. Um, this finished player death sequence when health is 0. Not finished. There was no death animation that came with the humanoid character that I'm using, so I'll have to come up with something. It'll probably just be some kind of message that'll pop up and be able to restart. So that's not finished. Add enemy health regeneration when not attacking player. Okay, that is finished. So that is finished. I'm going to copy that because we have a few of these that are finished. The third thing was improved enemy health indicator, graphical bar instead of text mesh. That's not finished. Okay, add XP and rank to enemies, which, yeah, we did that a while back, as well as an XP gold reward on defeat. Yeah, that's actually finished. Remove the, I was giving myself automatic gold and experience to test the UI indicators for gold and what your current gold level's at, and rank, and showing that animation of the rank going up. But that's working pretty good. So I took that automatic thing out, and now, so when you kill an enemy, you will get some experience and some gold. So that's been completed. Create master waypoint collection and add additional waypoints all over the map. We did some of that, so I'm going to say that's in progress. I wanted to go ahead and set up, the waypoints across the whole map and get all that just finalized and done. And I said I was going to make a point to do it, but it gets a little dry to do that. It takes some time too to get everything just tweaked just right. So all the points are correct, and it makes a nice smooth waypoint path from one location to another, and as well as getting the enemies to follow that. So anyways, on the I don't want to say I abandoned that. I'm kind of doing them one area at a time. I think I'm going to just stick to that because I'm going to show you in a minute. I actually redid location B. That was the first, I want to say the first 6, 7, 8 videos I did. I had this little one shack, building that was just set up there back when we were building the player inventory, or basically the spawning of inventory items, and being able to pick those up and building the first iteration of our inventory management for the player. And so it was all done out of that little shack in the middle of, location B, and there was really nothing there. It was just, barren land. So that's changed quite a bit. I kind of redid that this past week, and I want to showcase that. Okay, next thing, modify waypoint system to allow next waypoint to be selected randomly each iteration. I think there was something that I was going to do to kind of randomize like an enemy if you got a batch of waypoints, where he's just randomly kind of moving from one. No, I have not done that because there's really so many different ways to utilize the waypoint system, and just when you set up a bunch of waypoints, you could have different ways that an enemy can navigate those waypoints. Sometimes you want a fixed pattern. Sometimes you want something a little more randomized. Other times you may just want one spawning and going to a point and stopping there. There's so many different variations. So we have the ability to easily set an enemy to spawn in and go to a specific waypoint, or a random waypoint and stop there, or we have the ability to send that enemy on once he spawns in on a waypoint course, which can be repeated, or it could stop at the end of the last waypoint. You could, stop there. And, the starting and ending waypoints can be specified, or it can be left to random choice by the scripting to just pick one. Of course, randomly picking the waypoints may or may not be, the best result, because sometimes you want an enemy to follow a somewhat of a path, and so that it looks more realistic, like he's walking down a trail or whatever, not walking off the edge of a cliff, dropping down 100 yards or 100 meters and to get to a waypoint, that because of the way if you let it go random, where it randomizes and picks one that sends them in a direction that's not obvious. And so I'm not using actually could not get the what was it called? Unity has something built into it for a nav mesh agent. I could not get that working. I went through all the steps to set it up. My nav mesh was set up, but the enemy for some reason just would not follow that, and so maybe I had something set up wrong. I'm not really sure. I think it had to be a humanoid type rig, which I had, and it still wouldn't work. So I just abandoned that, and that's when I started kind of building my own AI, more or less, using my own waypoint system. And that's what we have here and what we're doing. So anyways, this particular type of waypoint setting selection here, modify waypoint system allow next waypoint to be selected randomly each iteration. It's not finished, and I don't know if that's actually such a good idea. I might not even do that. It just doesn't seem to make sense as I kind of played with this and worked through it more and developed this program a little bit more, this game. It just seemed better to have more of a controlled navigation through the waypoints as opposed to just randomly letting them go anywhere. It may be fine if it's in an area that's kind of open and you just have an enemy that's kind of moving randomly across the field, for example, where there's no obstructions or no cliffs he's going to drop off. Let's put it that way. Basically within a contained area, that would work fine. Okay, add loot chests throughout free roam areas, not the main map locations. Not finished. I actually just came across or found a nice animated chest that I do want to use for that. They'll kind of be hidden in certain areas and things you can find, but yeah, we'll work on that. So let me just update this, save that. So that's kind of the status of some of those. Now let me minimize this for a minute. Let's bring up our world map here that we had. This is for those of you that may or may not have seen the actual map that we have. This will give you an idea of what location is what. So location B is where we started originally on this little platform that's underneath here. This little platform here, we had one single hut there, basically a little old cabin or brick shed, whatever you want to call it. And then I moved down to developing location A and put some trees and built where we had the tigers spawning and multiple tigers. Actually, there's 7 now that kind of randomly go around here. There's 3 that go in a circular fashion, and then there's one in each direction, north, south, east, west, around here, that have their own waypoint course that they will go through, and they can respawn after they die. They respawn after I've changed it from 60 seconds to 30 seconds, so they will respawn. But now location B, like I said, I worked out a waypoint path that went all the way down here and then navigated back up and would bring us to location B. The reason I started doing that, if you watched my last video, I was trying to get it set where, or come up with a method where our Invector third-person controller, our main character, which is currently controlled by the Invector third-person controller script, where it would be able to automatically, for example, you walked up to a sign and kind of like not really a bus stop, but we're going to represent it like a sign. You walk up, you see a picture of the map, and you can pick a location that you want to go to, and you pay a fee, a gold fee, and for that fee, it will automatically automate walking your character from point A to point B, or whatever location you pick, from the current location you're at to any other location for a fee. And locations that were further out obviously would charge more gold. The ones that were close would be less. Anyway, so after I put together the waypoint system, I actually got it. I did get it working where it would move the player through the waypoints, but the animations wouldn't quite work right. The Invector script is so tight; it's tightly wound and dependent upon its own internal variables and things that you set externally through the inspector, that if you start really trying to modify it to work with some external sources, especially through automating the movement without, because by default it's accepting values from the horizontal and vertical axis, which is mapped to, generally on a PC, it's going to be your A and D keys are your horizontal, and W and S are vertical. So you get a positive or negative value based on how it's being held, how long, and in either direction. So and plus you get the mouse. You have the mouse that you can't just use the keys alone to actually turn your character. Use the mouse in conjunction with that, and so it's I don't want to say it's a very complicated or complex controlling setup, but it's pretty standard. But in order to override both the mouse and the keyboard and cause the character to rotate properly and animate properly, there were some issues I had with it. At one point I almost had it working right, and then it broke, and so I went back and forth trying different things, and like I said, I was able to get it to move through the waypoints without animation, no problem, where he would just kind of float, kind of hover in position, like in the idle state or standing still, and he would just kind of slide all the way down through the path. That worked fine. I mean, I could actually move him there, but getting overriding the internal Invector motions and working with that, it was very difficult without good documentation, and there really weren't any video tutorials they had on their website or anything to kind of override that. I guess what they're trying to do is lock it down to get you to purchase theirs, and it's really made as it's intended to be an input controlled third-person character, not something that's kind of automated through external scripting. And I didn't want to spend. I already spent several days trying to figure it out. I just kind of abandoned that for now. And I'll come back to it at a later point. I have another idea. Since I was able to get it to just move through the waypoints, standing still in motion, I thought maybe getting a little creative and coming up with maybe this, since we do kind of have a fantasy type world here. Maybe these magic carpets, for example, that you purchase a magic carpet that takes you to there, and basically I could place the character on top of the carpet and have this magic carpet kind of float through the path, and so there's really no motion that needs to be there except for him standing on that carpet, and so I could really, that could work perfectly fine, and all that. The other option I thought about was just doing basically a teleport, which a direct teleport, from one location to the other for a fee. And you'll see in a minute I have the same common column statues set up at each location, which are the spawn locations for the player. And so I could just spawn it for the fee. You just spawn there and you're instantly there. But I kind of wanted to animate it a little bit. And, if you had to go run, get a drink or take a little break, you could spawn, have your guy just automatically run to a location and let it go, and at least have a minute or two to step away for a short break to do whatever. But I may have to look at another option for that. Like I said, we'll come back to it. So I abandoned it for now. Anyways, I did redo location B, and we're going to showcase that here in a minute. Let me close this. And when this is our what we had in our to-do for 26 here, create ads. This is where I document it. Create an auto navigation function, move player from location X to location Z, or essentially one location to another. Start position and position will be passed in the function. These will need to be tagged a special endpoint tag. Use spawn locations for this. And so, yeah, the other thing I was trying to do was create a waypoint system that also did not require all of the dragging and dropping of the next and the previous waypoints. If you've seen the previous videos, I created a very simple, almost like you could think of it a node-based setup, sort of where you one node points to it's got a pointer to the previous and the next, location, waypoint location. It's using the similar concept of a node-based system, and yeah, so it would, any enemy that would be sent to one waypoint as a starting point could automatically, retrieve what is the next waypoint location from this one. It would be a predefined waypoint navigation path that way. And so with the new way that I was doing it, which I've used there's a new enemy I brought into Area B, and he's using the newest waypoint setup, which eliminates the need to really do a whole lot of that, and all the code is driven from one main script. So we'll showcase that in a minute. So yeah, this was kind of abandoned. This is option 1 here that I had. It's not done. I'm just going to leave it there. Let's close this. Alright, so let's go ahead and what I did before I came on stream 2, I compiled the program so that I'd have an actual build version. So let's launch it here. I didn't want to run it through the environment just to get hopefully a better frame rate. And I'm not sure what, let's see, hopefully this is the right one, because it should not have given me that dialog window where I select my resolution. Anyways, we'll just let it go. It'll take a minute to load. Hopefully not too long. You might see the XSplit watermark. As long as you see that, we're still loading. Yeah, I need to work on a progress bar that shows the status of loading. They're loading different assets. There has to be a way to obtain that information from Unity as it's loading the project, so that I can create some kind of indicator. Okay, now this is not the one. No, this isn't it. Let me escape out of here. I'm going to delete that shortcut off my desktop because that apparently is an old one. Alright, so what I should have here, let's just navigate there. It's under Unity. Yeah, this is not showing, although this is showing 612 here. Let's go ahead and launch this one. See what happens. Yes, and that went right into the, okay. For whatever reason, that link was probably to an old version. Because this went without prompting for the resolution dialog. It went directly into a full screen, which is why I wanted a full screen native resolution. Okay, so what I have here is I have them spawning. I repositioned. The spawn, and actually we've got some stuff missing here. I hope that's not going to be a problem. Anyway, let's run up here a little bit so I can show you what we've got. I changed the text to above the tigers. I shrunk it down a little bit to an 8-point so it's not so large. Because when you're in the distance, you can actually see all that. Eventually, I'll remove all that, but for now, it's so we can see it. You can see I also added some grass here. As you approach the grassy area, there's actual grass. Just a minor cosmetic. And you notice the audio. I don't know if you can. Hopefully, you can hear that. It's picking it up. Some background music starts playing. It's using a spatial 3D sound setup where there's a certain radius that you can actually hear the audio, and as you get closer to the center of where the audio source is originating, you'll get to full volume, which I have at 50% of the volume in Unity here. So again, this was our original location. Nothing new about this. You see we got some funky mushrooms spawning there. That was a new thing I added. The idea of the mushrooms, I started thinking about the stamina. You know, you run out. There's been times where I've had to run from, especially when you're running from some enemies that are going to be stronger as this progresses. You need more stamina, you know, to get away. And so the idea of the mushrooms are, there's mushrooms that, first of all, I'm going to remove them out of this area. They're in the general inventory, that's why they're shown up here, but I want to remove them from showing up here. There's a special area in location B which has these mushroom patches that spawn. And there's 4 different kinds of mushroom, 2 yellow, 2 red. There's a small and a large of each color. And the large red will give a 100% stamina regen on your player. So you get 100%, you know, refill on your stamina. The small red one is 50%. The large yellow is 25%, and the small yellow mushroom is 10%. See what should be over here, right about here. There should be a statue. And I don't know why it didn't get included in the assets. I was moving things around. Let me just jump down here just to get down here quicker. Yeah, I noticed it's missing from over here as well. I don't see it. But anyways, it was a structure that I had to indicate the player locations, the spawn locations. Now you see there's only one enemy over here, but he's valued a little higher. He's 500. The tigers, when you kill them, have it set for for 50 gold. I'm sorry, 25 gold and 50 experience. And I believe I set this one here because I've doubled it basically. It's 500 on the experience of that. It's 150 experience, and you get 75 gold. And again, over here, I have set up. Now, like I said, this was the area that was just one of those little shacks. So I took this area, threw out some boulders, some rocks up front here, just to kind of give it a little more environment. And then we put the little grass. It's, unfortunately, it's not like a realistic type grass. And that also has audio that plays. Alright, so he's obviously got some animation issues. So he's going to respawn here in a little bit. So same thing, it's got a radius where you can hear the music. Got our patches here, our red, yellow, small ones. They spawn and despawn fairly quickly, but there's plenty here to pick up. I mean, there's patches everywhere. And what I did was set up these little huts. I'm going to pick up health here. The audio seems to get kind of wacky. Could be because my frame rate is low. course, I have unlimited bullets. I haven't implemented clips yet, where you got to pick up and reload, all that. Of course, everything lights up when you pick it up. So we'll pick some of those up. So we got a bunch of mushrooms. Can't really use them yet, but like I said, I have them set. The properties that are set on them are the numbers I said. The 100% for the large red for a stamina boost, 50% on small red, and 25 for the large yellow, and 10% boost on the small yellow. So I've got to implement that. I was just working on this area most recently and trying to get this set up. And I was actually having an issue with when I would shoot the bullets at this goblin here. It's like 1 out of 10 would like hit him and do damage. The rest seemed to be like passing through him. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I'm just making sure each one is hitting. What I found out is I had the code that would take damage and fire was in the regular update function, which is, you know, run every frame. Well, it's not guaranteed to run every frame, but it's scheduled to run every frame. It may or may not, depending on the performance of the system it's running on. So I wound up having to move some of the code from the thrust bullet script that we have, you know, into the what we call a fixed update function, which is guaranteed to run every frame. So that way we get more accurate results with the, you know, the bullet. See, if you get too close to them, you can't. The bullets, because the gun's too close, it won't take damage. So you got to be on the move. The bullets actually have a rigid body component on them, and a rigid body is used in conjunction with the Unity physics system. That's why you see, if you noticed, when you shoot the bullets at an enemy, right now they're bouncing off of him, but I probably need to change that, get rid of the rigid body, and I have a collider on there, a capsule collider, which is another way to detect collisions. And I may need to switch it. I mean, it's fine for now. The bullets are bouncing off, but it is taking damage when they hit, just because of the rigid body component that's on there. And it was on there by default from the 3D model I pulled from the Unity Asset Store. What I could have destroyed the bullet immediately on contact, and then you wouldn't see him flying off, but I wanted to leave it so if there were multiple enemies, the bullet ricocheted. You know, the physics could ricochet it off the player and maybe hit another enemy. Not the player, but the enemy, and maybe hit another enemy. So this is this area. The only thing I'm going to change about this for now is let's let him beat on us. We're not taking any more damage. I don't have the, like I said, death part is not done. Our health is at 0, obviously, right now. But we're not taking any death. Let's sort of inventory and see. We don't have any health packs. Yeah, so you see the gold, we're at 225 there. We're at level 3. And each level goes up. Every time you increase the level, the next rake up is 25% higher than the previous. So you start at 100. That's the base for level to go to level 1 from 0 to 1. And so to go to level 2, you need 125 experience, and to go to level 3, it's the 125 plus 25% more of that, and so far it's compounded as you rank up. Yeah, so I'm just really playing around right now. I mean, it's like I said, it's still, we don't really have any missions built in or any purpose yet to this this little project. I'm just trying to build out areas and put a unique enemy or two in each area, and then we'll look at adding some NPC players that are other humans or other creatures you would interact with that aren't necessarily going to attack you and kill you, but they're part of the quest. For example, it could send you on a quest to go find a certain rare item, and I need to probably reduce the spawn generation of these mushrooms, because there's quite a bit. I want to make them a little bit more rare. I don't, you know, right, the way it is right now, you could run through here, and you're actually faster than this goblin. So even though he's 500 experience to kill him, or he has 500 hit points, he's actually a little bit slower than the tiger. So you can actually outrun him easily. Matter of fact, if you sprint run away from him, he'll get outside of the tracking radius, and he'll stop pursuing us. Now we don't have any stamina, so we're out. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have stamina. I'm looking at the shield. That's what we're low on. Yeah, so yeah, we're going to reduce the mushrooms spawning in this area. Not necessarily the number of patches that are out there, but just the spawn time. We're gonna right now they're on 60-second. They spawn every 60 seconds. But each mushroom, when it is spawned, has a lifespan of 45 seconds. And you know, so with the number of patches, the number of mushrooms, I mean, they're coming and going pretty quick. They're all over the place. But this is the only area that I would like to have these mushrooms spawning at. And you can see I've controlled it here where it's only those mushrooms, those 4 different kinds of mushrooms that are spawning. So I've set up something new, or made a modification to our spawning system where, you know, initially we were passing in, you specify the category of items that you want to spawn at a certain spawn location. Well, I added another option, which, you know, when you specify, instead of specifying categories, you can specify specific items that you want to spawn there, and you put those elements and those items in the basically in the categories where we drop those in or type those in. So using the same you know, setup fields for those, but there's another checkbox down at the bottom where when you check it, it's you're saying that the items that are typed in the categories are actually specific items as opposed to the categories of the items. So it uses that flag, that little checkbox, to know whether it's going to spawn specific items or items from a certain category. So we've expanded the spawning system to allow, you know, another way to spawn items. Now the last thing I want to do is an exclusion. For example, all the spawn locations that are in location A, they are set where they'll spawn randomly any item out of the list of inventory items that we currently have. Now we only have we had 8 items, I think it was, and we added the 4 mushrooms, so that makes 12. And that's why you're seeing them over there in location A spawning. But what I want to do is be able to provide a list of excluded items, or possibly exclude a category of items. So like the mushrooms maybe could be moved in their own category. Right now the list's under consumables because that's what they will be. You're going to consume them in order to gain some benefit from them, similar to the first aid kit and the armor regeneration drink, potion, whatever that we have. And so they're all listed as a consumable right now, which they are. But I think a simple exclusion, or a way to exclude, you know, certain items or a category of items would be nice. So I'll have to expand that. I'll have to think about the best way to do that and expand the spawning system again. And so that was really after I abandoned the way, you know, the player automation of the player moving from one location to another. I moved on to this, you know, and decided to redo this area, and I added in the grass, of course, in both areas, up top and over here. But I'm kind of, you know, I'm not sure why those columns would show up. They should be showing up. They look pretty cool. They had some rotating blocks on them, and Maybe I can get into the editor and we'll take a look. It's possible. I know I was renaming. Oh, I know what it is. I'm sorry. I know exactly what it is. I deleted the column. I deleted that column out because it had some materials that were named with a Russian character set because it was developed. You know, the materials for it happened to be developed by a Russian artist, and it was posted in the Unity Art Store. Well, anyways, I downloaded that asset from the Unity Asset Store. When I tried to compress the, like I've been backing up my projects almost on a daily basis. If I make some major progress, or like for example, I redid this whole area, I definitely did a backup after that, so I wouldn't, you know, lose or corrupt anything, and so it would not, Windows would not compress those files because they had the Russian character set. It was an unsupported character set, so it wouldn't compress them. So I tried to rename the files, and I thought I renamed all the materials to something that was more meaningful to me. But it's still, there's something internal to one of those, some part of that game object or that model, and it was still saying there was some kind of Russian character set somewhere internally. It just couldn't back it up and had an issue with it, so I just took it out altogether. And there was another one I was going to use, so, but I may come back to that. I did kind of like that, but I'll just use another one. There wasn't, like I said, another column. I have a statue that looks pretty cool that I'll add in. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, this animation works fine for the attack here on this guy. He's doing that animation, but for some reason, he will not execute his walk animation. I can see it play. I've got a bug in the logic. He's not walking properly. The walk animation is not being triggered properly. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so let's dash away from him real quick here. Alright, so yeah, he's easy to get away from. So he'll definitely stay in an area. But you see he's just sliding and gliding. He's not really... Well, he tries to run. He looks like... I have him set where he's alternating between a walk and a run between each waypoint. Oops, he's coming after me now. Gotta get outside of, I think it's 30 meters, and then he'll turn around. Hopefully got enough stamina to do that, make that happen. Little by little, we're getting further away. There we go. Okay, and I also put, yeah, in this open area, you got more music playing. In the middle of the map, kind of in the open area, you got some music that plays as you're just kind of running in the open area. We're about in the center of the map. We're close to it. Yeah, like I was just playing around with the sound, the background music, trying to figure out how all that works. Because initially I had attached a background music in an area. I just wanted to be in one area, and it just kept playing, like no matter where I was at. Even though there was a setting called minimum and maximum distance you would set. But there were some other settings that need to be configured to allow it. By default, it was in a 2D sound mode, which meant traditional 2D games, you know, you're going to hear that music throughout the whole game. It's not really like, there's no spatial 3D sound where it's based on distance from an object or whatever in a 2D gaming setup. So that was the default though, and so I had to change it to a 3D number one. And so let me exit this for a minute. And then the other setting was, of course, setting the min and max. And there was one other thing I changed. That was the it was setting it to linear, I think, linear audio, which meant it had a linear. Now I don't want to say a Doppler effect, but it had a linear, you know, sound output from the center out, where it progressively went and got lower as you get out to a certain distance to the point where it gets cut off. So that's pretty much going to be it for our stream here. I just wanted to kind of showcase that little area that I worked on, but you know, I've actually finished that day before yesterday and a couple days ago, so haven't really done anything with this other than just play around with it and test it and kind of looking at what's working, what isn't, and I'm basically compiling it down to a build. And I picked up a bunch of music files that I downloaded, some sound effects. I'll start incorporating some of that. I found some audio for footsteps for various terrains. Didn't really have one for like on gravel, which is what I would like, but there was one for grass and one for supposedly snow. I haven't really listened to it. It may be something I can use as a substitute for an audio sound effect when walking on the gravel surface. So I'll need to check that out. Again, my surfaces are painted using the standard Unity terrain editor, and so I don't know if there's any way to obtain the kind of like the texture that was used to determine the name, and then therefore know what kind of texture terrain you're walking on. You know, I don't know if their basic terrain supports it other than painting it to look a certain way. You know what I mean? I'll have to look into it. It's something I just don't know, so I'll have to look into that. But let's go to, let me show you what I was referring to about the sound real quick. Terrain. Okay, for example, the audio source. This is on the main map. And what's nice here is, it's kind of, oops, let's drag this over here. Just kind of line that crosshair up with that blue square. That gives you an idea of kind of the radius. And see, that's set up over here. That's the actual sound I have. It's called Duet Forest Song that plays out in the open there. And so what I wound up having to do is under the, first of all, spatial blend here. It wasn't on 2D. I had to slide that over to 3D to make sure we're on a 3D spatial blend. The other setting that needed to be changed, and again, these can be done through scripting, but they provide a audio source panel when you drop in a clip, so it's really easy to just look at the settings, and if it's something that's not going to change within your game, then you know you can just set it here. Okay, the volume roll-off, that's what it was. You do a custom logarithmic roll-off is what it was set to, which had to be changed to a linear. And you can see it changes. Logarithmic was like this. So pretty much based on the distance that you set. Now I set my distances. Where did I set those? Min and max. There we go. Min at 1. Maximum distance is 235. And so you see there's 235 and there's 1. It's pretty much getting the volume all the way through, and so you don't really get a nice linear. It's just two. So one of the things to change it to a linear, which goes from there to there. So your minimum distance when you're, which is 1, that's the lowest you can go. So when you're right at the source of the audio, it's going to have the maximum volume and it fade out as you go on a linear basis as you go further out to your maximum distance. So those are the settings that need to be set. You drop the clip in if you need to control. There's some other settings I haven't researched yet on all this, but just make sure your spatial blend is set to 3D. And under 3D settings, expand that. Volume roll-off, set it to linear roll-off. And then also set your min and max distance. That's what controls the range of the audio in 3D space. So just set that up. And then you can adjust your volume here. I just have the volume at approximately 50%, 0.40. It's got a value. You can control this through code, through script. You set the volume. So for example, when I actually get to the point where I have a sound, like a setup screen, where you can go and you configure your sound, whether you want sound effects and background music, and you have sliders to indicate the volume, lower from off to maximum. In scripting, I'll be controlling this volume right here, and so the defaults will be at 50% and everything, but you can adjust it from there. That's something I'll want to work on now that I'm sticking in sounds, because I may want to turn off the music. You get tired of hearing it, or you just want it you want to control that, maybe just a very low volume, 10% instead of 50%, because some of it gets kind of loud. But I may have my audio turned up, so maybe on a stream it won't sound so loud, but it definitely sounds loud on my system when I'm listening to it. Yeah, so let's see if we can get I want to get this other asset brought in for where the player spawns are at. Player spawns. Okay, so this was it. The ancient column. But see, I deleted the column, so I don't even know. Yeah, see, nothing's here. It's just showing the transforms. We need to get rid of that. Let's find what we can use. There was, like I said, I found I've been trying to organize everything into this folder called Models 3D. Originally it was called 3D Models, but it showed up at the top here, which it's empty now. I can delete that folder. I moved everything out because I want everything that my custom things that I use, anything with an underscore is a folder that I've specifically created and organized for this project. This stuff down here is going to be stuff that was downloaded from the asset store, things that I'm using. But if I create like a prefab and customize and add scripting, well, I create a new master prefab and I put it either in my prefabs folder here for static objects, or something, I might put it in the resources depending on how it's going to load through scripting. I've got these prefabs in different folders here. Of course, my sprites are in here as well. Yeah, so let's look at that was our goblin here. So he has a lot of predefined animations that he can do. I wound up having to recreate this because this particular format for these animations is no longer supported in this version of Unity. They moved to a new way, which is called, it's using the animator thing here, and animator tab, and you create what's called a state machine here, which you've seen when we did the tiger. So if I go to my animator folder, see I have the goblin state machine that I had to set up. So and so we've got goblin idle, it goes to walk, goblin can run, and then in order to attack he'll have to be back idle, so in a goblin dead state. But for some reason it's not working. It's set up the same way as, of course, the tiger had a strike and a roar in addition to the dead, but walk and run, I set it up the exact same way. It could have something to do with the animations, because they were originally in a format that was not compatible with the new animator state machine. I wound up kind of creating this and extracting out the clips. I had to change it to a generic. I had to re-import that model and change the rig type to a generic. instead of whatever it was set to because it was not compatible. Anyways, there may be some issue with that. If I continue to have issues and can't resolve it, I may wind up changing out the Goblin for another one because I'd want something with some animations in it. Obviously, it looks more realistic when your enemies are actually moving, not just sliding around like on a skateboard. Let me just check one thing here because okay, I set the attack. Okay, the attack works actually, so that does work. When he's attacking, that variable is attacking. So now speed. How he gets controlled to go to a walk is based on the speed variable setting. So if the way this is configured, that if the speed is greater than 0.1 and speed is less than 0.5 and is attacking is false, then he should be able to walk. Maybe this has to be added there, the exit time, because like I said, these animations are not exactly, they weren't exactly compatible. See, if we play it though, I mean, you can see him. He went from idle to a walk. There's his walk. He's very slow. He's a slow walker. You could speed him up too. Let's see if he's at 2 double time. That's probably the way we probably want it. Anyway, I need to test that and see if that fixed it just by adding that. Transition has a fixed exit time, so and then if that works, it's often the same from the walk to the run. See the run, there's the walk to the run. So that seems to be okay here. The animations work here individually in just here, just looking at them, but it's getting it to trigger correctly through the animator state machine. Alright, so let's go back to, we are in Unity. Let's check one thing here. Under resources, prefab, enemy, goblin. Might have to play with some of these settings, the culling mode and the apply root motion. Let me just make sure all the values were set in Earth. This is the script I've written. Got all these variables we can set: the walk speed, run speed, turn speed, ground distance, min and max, tracking radius, tracking idle radius, tracking walk radius, tracking run radius, attack radius, attack damage. He does 30 damage, attack rate 0.75, so basically every 3/4 of a second you can attack. Health is at 500, reward XP 150, reward gold 75. So that's where all is configured. It can easily be changed if we decide we want to change it. All right, so let's run that and see. One thing I want to do, which I've kind of set this up where I can easily, I want to spawn in the B location right away. All I have to do is check this script, spawn the player there, but I need to uncheck the A because that's where I currently have him spawning. That's how I manually control it in here, so that I can just immediately spawn in a certain area. But yeah, anyway, so that's that. Let's also real quick. I was going to go to the 3D models, see if I can find the other column that I had. Let's see, you've got some cool stuff I found. Free, this is all free stuff. 3 models, a dwarven forage, bronze figures. There's like these head figures of 3 different bronze heads, um, animals, different ones I'll bring in. Let's see, under props, maybe it's over here. Magic idol, weapon, chest, Japanese. This may be the one I was thinking of. Not exactly, but I could use that as a replacement just to have something there. I wanted to have the same, like a stone, a certain stone or marker, statue, whatever, that indicates, you clearly know that that's the spawn location of where you'll wind up when you spawn to each area. Because right now, these are just, you can't really tell. You got to transform here. And that's it. There's no other thing. So let's there was another one I thought I had. Let's see, vector materials. Yeah, so I don't see it there. We'll go ahead and use the magic idol. And so what we'll do, for example, in here, we're going to delete that. Break our prefab. Yes, we know that. And we'll drop in some magic idol. And so let's hit play on that. Actually, that was in position A. I need to change that. Oh, it did show up. That's over. Look how huge that thing is. It's massive. That's too big. We're gonna have to scale it down. But it looks pretty good. So, anyways, let's go back here. Let's get back to the scene. Okay, so that's, yeah, that's way too big. Let's bring it down to 10% of that size. So just set everything to 0.1 in the scale, X, Y, and Z. F to zoom in. Let's kind of navigate through here. Way you can just kind of do what we call free flying mode in Unity here. Your scene. You right click the mouse, you'll get this eye symbol, which lets you rotate, but then you use the arrow keys to just kind of navigate through. So that's a quick way to get around and look around. It's probably about more like the size we want, and I'm hoping it's about, whoops. Now, see, there's a gap there. I don't like that. So what we're going to do is move that down a little bit. Each area is going to probably be different, so let's apply that. Let's see if we can get that. See if it updated here. Yeah, it did. One thing that's great, see, because I had this as a prefab, if we look up here, my prefabs folder, they had something called the ancient column, and that was the one that had the other one, the one that had the stuff I deleted out of here. Well, this is kind of like the master prefab, and you create many copies of it as you want. Well, if you modify something in your scene here, if you apply the changes, it'll apply it back to the master, which will automatically update all these other ones. So if we look here, like if I expand out, so they all under ancient columns say magic idol, whereas it had that other, all of them had the other stuff before. So it's one quick change can fix everything. Now the only thing I'll have to do though is, like I said, we'll have to go through. This is B now. Each location, and I like to just kind of do this. Drop it down to the point where it's just barely under the ground. You know, I don't want to see a gap underneath there. So any of them that may be on a slope, we'll have to check that out. Like the one we were at, A. Let's double check that, and we might have to zoom around, just look at it. Looks alright now. It's going to be buried. Alright, so let's go to C. Yeah, that one's kind of, drop that down about here. It really don't matter because we just want them buried in the ground. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time tweaking that much. Actually, I'm changing. What I should be changing is the ancient column, not the idol itself, for each location. So let's go back. Crap. Alright, I'm not going to worry about it. Let's. Alright, so that's done. That's done. Let's go back here. Drop that. Okay. Let's look at. Let's expand all these out. As we do them, we'll kind of close it. Let's see, which one are we at right now? Is this D? No. Alright, so that's what we got to do. This one ain't too bad. Alright, close that up. Most of the ones that are like more or less flat ground, I don't really look at too well, but these other ones that are on an unlevel ground, I like to look at all sides just to make sure we don't have anything sticking up, and we can actually zoom in to get a better look, and we might be able to bring that back up a little bit so it's not buried too much. Well, that's good, I guess. Alright, so alright, so I think we're good here. Alright, let's save our scene. Sometimes if this locks up, you lose. If you don't save those changes, you'll lose all the little tweaks you've done, and it gets really annoying. So if you want to save time, just save. It doesn't take much to save the scene. All right, so now we're spawning player at B. So this is what hopefully it'll show up. It won't be too tall. It's still fairly. It's a really nice detailed. But it's still. I think it's still too big. Let's back up and see. Yeah, let's bring it down. I really don't want it. I only want it like maybe twice as tall as the player. Yeah, because that's just like too big. So I'm going to go back. We need to scale it down even more. Well, let's make sure that actually it took all the scaling on this. Okay, that might be the issue there. Let's see. Alright, so the one we're at right now, let's see, it's probably, let's go look at that. Let's go half of that. So we're going to go point 0.05, 0.05. Let's just play that. Let's take a look before we apply that change. Let's see how the player looks next to that. That's a little better, I guess. Alright, so what we can do is apply that. Oh, crap. That's not what I meant to do, not on the entire thing, because what that did is whatever. Oh, maybe that'll be alright. Let's see. I just wanted to update the scaling for the magic idol, which it did there. Of course, it's going to be fine there, but let's see if it moved the location. I'm wondering if it updated the location. Yeah, see, it dropped it down, it screwed it all up because it readjusted it based on that other one, which I didn't want to do that. Okay. Just have to check each one, I guess. Okay, that's back to that. Let's go here. See if it'll just apply that. That's all I wanted. I think that did it because it kept. Alright, that's probably okay. Let's see. Our box collider might need to be adjusted though. Yeah, see, it's off now because we scaled it down to what was 0.1. Let's see. Let's go half of that. Let's go to 0.8. Half of that to 2. 0.8. Oh, maybe not. It just seems like it's off. Where's the... Yeah, that's way off. Okay, so I might need to redo that stuff. Let's see. Let's do this. 0, 0, 0. Let's reset that. Let's okay, now that's fine. So now we had it set at 1.6. It might be okay the way it was. That was actually 8. That's 1.6. This probably don't need to be at 7. 6. Okay. So what that box collider does to make sure you can't walk through that object. So let's rotate around. Let's see our... Yeah, see, this is a thinner item. The box collider was set up for the original object I had here. And so for this size, I think I'm going to leave it sunk in a little bit. Yeah, but for this size, the it needs to be thinned out. So in the Z, let's see if we went 1. It's probably good that way. And then let's go. Yeah, actually the other side, the X looks fine. It's 1.6. It seems to be overlapping it somewhat reasonably well. There you go, just to offset that by a negative 0.1 on the X-axis, the center point. And it's slid it over so it looks like it's somewhat much better that way. I'm going to go a little bit higher. The height, 6 point. Actually, it's quite a bit below here. So let's go back to 6. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's probably go a little bit smaller, 5.6 maybe. All right, let's save the scene. Let's Play, and let's just see what that looks like. Make sure we can't walk through it. Alright, so there it is. If we walk up to it, yeah, we can't get through it. We want to make sure that we can get close to it, somewhat reasonably close, without actually going through it. So yeah, that looks fine. Box colliders are invisible. You can't see them. It's like an invisible boundary. Alright, so that looks good, actually. Okay, so we'll take this one from B, player spawn B location. It's going to be our master prefab. Let's just apply that, and now let's just go back real quick and check all these other ones, including A. Alright, so the only thing we're going to do is like pull this up and out of the ground. That's all. We're going to leave it half buried. That's fine. Alright, that's done. It won't take long to check these. Okay. That's done. That's fine. And then G. That looks good too. So that should be, this one is the last one over here. Alright. So let's shut that down. Let's save. Alright. Yeah, I didn't think I wanted to, but I might actually bring the grass all the way up along the edge here, in and around that. Let's go ahead and paint that in and see how it looks. You can always take it out. It's not really a big deal. This is location B. Let's go on our terrain, hit the paint, brush size is 7. That was the grass we used. And so the way that works, you can see you get this blue thing. If you just click and hold the left mouse button and just drag the mouse, you're like painting the surface with this grass. And it knows exactly. So we're going to fill all this in. I just want to, we can put some grass up here. So fill all this in. I want to see how this is going to look with this, grassy like that. Alright, so that's it. So let's hit play, see how that looks. Yeah, so now we get some grass here. Flowing grass. And that's actually pretty thick grass. There are some settings you can play with to thin it out and maybe do it in, you know, where it's not as thick. You know, you get little blips of grass like that are spread out more, and then you can do a variation of grass. You get like 2 different kinds or multiple kinds. I only have 2 kinds right now set up, which I can use to paint any surface. So yeah, I think that looks better to have the grass kind of around there as you're approaching. Alright, so we're going to call it, I just wanted to go through some of that. You see how we add something in, how we can update it, change the prefab, and then readjust it in our level here. So there's some things that I do want to work on for the next session. I definitely want to, you know, kind of want to flesh out, I say flesh out, use that term, flesh out each location with a basic environment. And then, so we'll go on and do these other areas, and we'll create a waypoint system. We'll set those up to go from each location, and so we do them alphabetically. Since we started at location B, then we went to A and did that, and we came back to B to redo it. But now we'll just do C, and then we'll do D, E. We'll just keep doing each area sequentially until we get through them all. And once we have all our locations, then we can start building in and tying these areas together with some meaningful quests or different things. But we need to actually get the environment built, and that, you know, I just have to think it up and come up with an idea for each area. Like I said, I want each area to look different than the previous. I don't want to have you know, 8 different areas that look the same, or even I want each one to have a reason to go there, something specific. Like this one's going to have the stamina mushrooms that you can pick. Oh, this other thing I want to show you real quick. Let's just show you how we can adjust the mushroom spawns. Let's go to the mushroom patches. Actually, it's in our prefabs folder. Well, at least I thought I had mushroom patches here. May not have created it as a prefab yet. Let's close that up. Prefabs. No, I guess I don't. I don't have it. Yeah, I must have just laid these out. Location B. Yeah, we just did these mushroom patches here like that. So each spawn, if you click on each spawn, each individual spawn, let's get to a Y view right here. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's click that so you can see where it is. So this is where this spawn that I'm clicked on. As you can see, clicking each one that move around, there's several. Now so this is an individual mushroom spawn. It's going to spawn a single mushroom. Now I've got 12 of these in each game object called the mushroom patch, and I could have sworn that I created a patch and then just dragged it in and Maybe I never got around to doing that. I was going to do that. Anyway, so this is what I'm specifying. See, it's actually called categories. And I'm listing actually the individual items. It's really not categories, individual items that I want to show up in this spawn and of course a random item would be chosen from this list. I set my frequency every 60 seconds. These are in seconds, and the lifetime of that spawned item, 45 seconds. And this is the new item option I added called specific items. When you check that, this is saying that these are specific items as opposed to an actual category, even though we're using the category list or array here in this script. And so let's edit the script real quick. And just to show you, I want to show you how that's implemented. I think I'm going to try to round up maybe some volunteers, some artistic people that maybe could, maybe would want to work on an environment for, one of my locations, and they could create that as a prefab, and I could extract it out and use it. Or they could export it as a package. Then I could import it into my scene here, my own project, and use it. And this way we can get maybe all these locations worked on at the same time. Have one person work on each area. Alright. So looking at our script real quick here. I actually put the Visual Studio on the other side here. So we're going to have to drag that over. Alright, so let's expand that out. Okay, so this is the line that was added. The public bool m_specific items. And of course anything that's shown as public here will show up in the inspector. So you can easily set those if you want through the inspector, but you don't have to. It can still be overridden through the script. As a matter of fact, you can override it in the script, whatever values are there. That's kind of like defaults. And so in this update function here, okay, I modified it right here. I put this check that if the m_specific items, which means if it's true, by just saying the name of the Boolean. If it's false, it won't. It'll jump down here and do what we had before, which was just spawn item. That was our original function name. It was called spawn item. And so I added this new, in the inventory manager, a new function called spawn specific item. And it still passes in the same information, but this function works differently with this because it knows that this category is actually a specific item and not an actual category. So we'd have to look at the inventory manager, but essentially that's how it's set up. I'm just showing you how it was set up here, how it uses that. And it's also checking to make sure that the category is not set to the word all. So, which means that renders the item useless. We don't have a specific item called all. So if you set up a category called all and you check that box that this is a specific item, it'll ignore that specific item checkbox because you have to have a specific item in there. Now if you put an item that doesn't exist, the only thing that's going to happen is it will not spawn anything. And I did change. Oh, the other thing I did, I changed our spawns. They no longer in this spawn item. we had a while loop that would go until it actually found a legitimate item to spawn. Like if it's doing random ones and it couldn't do a match, it would go ahead and um, continue to search until it found an item. Well, that would cause, if for some reason I deleted an item and still had an item name in one of my spawn locations that didn't exist, I found that it was causing an infinite loop and it would lock up the program. So that was another glitch or logic bug in the code. So I got rid of the loop and changed the spawn routines here, the specific item and the regular spawn item, to assume that whatever category or items being passed in, item names being passed in, that they are in fact, we're going to assume that they exist. And so it only does a search for that one time. It doesn't pass through all the items, and if it doesn't find it, it exits the function. It doesn't keep trying to find, get another random item and find one that may exist, or it just aborts at that point, and it's on the person putting this together, i.e. myself right now, but anyone who would use one of my scripts here if they're using this, it's on you to make sure that you're putting in correct spawn category names and item names if you want something to spawn. If not, it'll just essentially it'll be like a useless function. It does nothing. So anyways, yeah, we'll call it at that. Let me jump back here real quick, and we are going to switch over here. I need to switch this over. So yeah, we're going to stop. That's going to be the end of the stream. If you're not following or subscribing on YouTube, definitely subscribe. That way you can find out when I stream again next time. If you have any suggestions or anything you want to see specifically, may not be related to this, or maybe you just want to know, maybe you're playing around with Unity and you want to know, well, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? If it's something I've already done and I know how to do that, I'll definitely, I could do a short video on how to do that, a specific thing. But if it's something I haven't encountered, I'll of course let you know that as well. It may be something easy to figure out, on a live stream. I don't know. But I'll definitely give it my best shot. So thanks for stopping out and watching, and we'll see you in the next stream.